Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In today's tutorial I want to go for something that's quite basic but a lot of people seem to be struggling with. It's about setting up your cinematic camera and a target that you're locked on in order to have full control and being able to realize a fully immersive cinematic sort of shot, maybe for a space scene where you have a ship flying through an asteroid field. And that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to show you the basic sort of settings and how to set up a blueprint in order to be able to do this. And by the end of it, you should be able to create your own cinematic camera where it's following a character and you're able to animate that character and animate various different things about how the camera sees the character as it goes through. This is not a tutorial about getting high fidelity of your camera settings or post-processing material or anything like that. This is purely just animating a camera within a sequence, right? So it's nothing else on top of that, because I'm trying to keep it straight to the point, and the tutorial is going to be as long as it is anyway. But yeah, let's begin. Okay, so I've got here a scene in Unreal Engine, and I want to show you how we're going to set this up. I want to show you actually a sequence that I already have. I want to just play back and just let's just have a look and see how this works. It's not a finished scene, but you can see the camera sort of going backwards and the ship flying towards it. But it's actually locked. The ship is actually locked to the camera, and it's just got some animations that are being played onto the ship itself while the scene is moving. So we're actually getting the ship locked to the camera while it's moving in 3D space, and we have full control of the ship and what it does, so we can animate it and get various different cinematic effects with this. This is playing through a sequence, and it's currently obviously playing in real time. Now if I stop this and let's just work it out how I've done this, and then I'll show you the basics of how how you're able to control it, how you're going to get even better control over it, how you can use a spring arm and so on to get a nice, good cinematic feel to your scene. So the first thing, let's just get ourselves into a position where we might want to start animating our camera from. So I don't know, I'm just gonna try and do something like this, where the camera is sort of pulling. So I want the camera to sort of pull this way, and then the ship is sort of going almost in parallel with us at the same time. So for us, I'm just gonna control space, and I'm gonna right click and go to cinematics and create a new level sequence, and we're gonna call this LS tutorial. Right, okay, so let's just open it, and this is our sequence. Now for the time being, we don't really need to do anything with the sequence, but I am going to set this up to a 24 FPS just because I like to always render my cinematics in 24 FPS. I'm just going to put the sequence away. Now I'm going to control space again, and I do actually have a ship inside my project, so I'm going to right click that and browse to asset. Now here's the thing, it doesn't matter what you're trying to animate here, if it's a ship or a person or whatever, it doesn't really matter. What I'm about to show you, you're just gonna have to think of it as the general shapes of things, right? We're just using a ship as an example here, but you could apply this into other things. So I'm gonna use this particular blueprint, but you can use another, you can make your own, right? So the first thing, I can right click and duplicate it, but if you want to make this exact blueprint, like in the sense of the same type of blueprint, you're just going to have to right click, go into create a blueprint class, and then just select actor, right? Not pawn, actor, okay? I mean, any one of these would actually work, but for us, we're just going to use the actor. So that's what that blueprint class is, it's an actor. So I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call this BP camera BP ship camera. Okay, we're gonna press enter to open it. So I've got my blueprint opened. Now this particular blueprint comes with a spaceship, which is this one, the shuttle inside, and the cockpit. Now these three things aren't very important. but the hierarchy is going to be important. So the hierarchy right now is that this is the scene root, this is the pivot point, and these three meshes belong to this. So if this changes position, so will the mesh. Like for example, if I increase the scale of the pivot point, the mesh entire scale will change. So what we want to do is want to take the whole ship whole and drag it over into the default scene root, and this makes that be the centerpiece. So this is now the actual main piece, and these two fall underneath it. We're also going to go over here and press the add button and search for a spring arm. So we're going to add that in. And we're also going to press the add button again and search for a camera. So we're going to add a cine camera. Okay. Now the cine camera is attached to spring arm. That's not what we want. We want instead to take the cine camera and we want to make it the scene root. See what I've done there? So now the cine camera is the scene root and the ship belongs to it. Now I want the spring arm to be the one. So we can take this and put it over here like that, attach, and then take the ship over like that. So you basically, if you want this to be attached to the camera, so for example, if I take this and I drag it to the camera, it will ask me if I want to attach it. If I do that, it will override the spring arm as being the main child. See? So now the spring arm is something that can become a child of the ship, sorry. So you want to take the spring arm, drag it to the cine camera, attach it, and then take the ship and attach it to the spring arm. So now we have a ship that's attached to a spring arm that's attached to a camera. So we're going to press compile. Okay. Now I'm going to take this a bit over to the right side, control space again, and drop this into the scene anywhere, right? I'm just going to go back a little bit. So this is where I've got it. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that we already are seeing a camera over here, and that's the camera from the blueprint itself. So we need to, because right now the camera is like kind of stuck inside the ship, so we need to rectify that because we're not going to be able to see anything while this is happening, right? So let me just save the scene and then we'll resume. Now, we need to rectify stuff inside the actual blueprint. So we're gonna select our spring arm over here. I'm just gonna move this a bit like that so we can see the camera. And then I'm going to say the target length arm. So if we go in a positive value, the ship, is going to move backwards, but we need it to move forward. So we're going to go in a negative value, maybe minus 1,000. Well, that's not enough. Minus 10,000. There we go. So now the ship is quite in front. Now imagine the camera is sitting right here. This is the center point of the spring arm, and that's where the ship is right now. Okay, so we don't really need to do anything anymore from this point inside the blueprint unless you want to add some more customization. But what we're going to do is we're going to press compile. Okay, and then we are going to close the blueprint for now, and we are going to bring our level sequence that we created earlier. And I am going to drop in our BP ship camera inside of here. Now, one thing is that if we try to render anything out now, we won't be able to see anything because this sequence does not have a camera cut. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a camera cut track. And then in the camera cut track, we can press the plus button and select the BP ship camera. And this has now loaded this particular camera in here for however many frames we got. So I think the frame, yeah, it's 120 frames. As a rule of thumb, I'll just follow what I'm going to do in the sequence so that you get better results. So the first thing is you want to drag this further, beyond 0 and then above the threshold of the frame. So if it's 120, this is going to be the render timeline. You want to have always this going above the limit, right? Because you're not going to get any bad frames at the start or at the finish if you do this. Right. Now, the next thing is for this ship camera, we want to start transforming a few things. So if we press the plus button and we add the spring arm, then we can now control the spring arm. So for the spring arm, we are going to control, again, the transform. And this is allowing us to do the location, rotation, and scale. Now, we're not going to really bother about the scale, but the rotation and location is interesting. Because if you start moving the location on the y-axis, as you can see, it's moving the location of the ship. And if you do it for the z-axis as well, just bear in mind, this is very important. As you're moving this rotation, as you're moving this location, the entire spring arm goes around and the camera stays fixed in the center where it was. So the spring arm is the one that's moving entirely from the pivot point as well. Now, why is this important? Because if you're rotating the spring arm, you're not going to be rotating it from the center of the spring arm. You're rotating it from the pivot. So what do I mean by this? If I go roll, everything looks fine, like nothing's really changing apart from the fact that obviously the ship is rotating and the spring arm. But if I do the pitch, you see that? The pitch is now lifting the ship like that. So this is from the center, sorry, from the pivot point. And then this is taking it sideways, you see, and you can go in a negative value, like you can do -50 if you want to go to the left, for example, right? But yeah, by default, it won't allow you to go beyond negative unless you manually type it in. Right. Now, that's great, but this is going to be a bit limiting for us because if we want to like rotate and rotate the ship left and right, we can't really do it from the spring arm. I mean, the spring arm's rotation and location is going to have its uses, but we also need to be able to actually do this to the ship itself. So we're going to press this plus button again here, and we're now going to select. And here's the thing, you want to select the top mesh. So if you look back into your blueprint, the top mesh is SM spaceship _01 or whatever it is in your case. So for me, that's what I need to add in here, which is the spaceship 01. And you can see it over here, and I can add the transform for this as well. And again, this is going to allow me to transform the ship itself, not the spring arm. So we now have two sets of individual controls for the same system. So for example, we could say, right, I want the ship to go like that. So the ship is now to the right of the spring arm and the camera. Or I could, I want to pitch it. So you see it's doing it on its pivot instead of doing it on the spring arm point. So this is important because this allows you for far more control over what you're doing. Okay, so now we have this, and we need to set our camera to wherever we want it. So for me, let me just take this sequence away. For me, I'm thinking maybe something like that. We start from there. Okay, so that's where the camera is going to be. Now I'm going to press this button, because if you press this button and you move around, you're moving the entire camera. So you're able to animate, modify the camera's position. I'm just gonna actually add the transform button to the whole blueprint as well. So I'm adding another transform, and this is over here, this final transform. And I'm going to press this button so that I'm keying in that location and rotation and everything else for the camera. Okay, I don't have to key in any of these for now. Now, what I want to do is I want to set an initial position for where the ship is going to be. So I'm going to do that through the spring arm. And one of the things that I want to do is inside the blueprint itself, and I don't have to do it inside the blueprint. I can also do it here. If I select the spring arm, I'm going to be able to override the target arm length. So I'm going to put that to like a 3, or maybe even more, maybe like a 5. So the ship is starting from over there, okay? Now, in the sequence, I want to rotate the ship so it's looking at us. So I could do this with the yaw, okay? So we can have the yaw maybe at 200. No, actually, I think probably about 155 or something like that, okay? And maybe we want its location, something like that. I'm just going to try and put it somewhere around there. And then I'm also going to be rotating it. So maybe like a -10, and it's coming that way. So this could be our starting point right here. So if we're happy with that, we can press the transform over here. So we're locking all these values in, and we can do the same thing for the spring arm. Now, I would definitely take all of these. So let me just make this a bit taller. I would take all of these options from here. Okay, and I would move them, to start from over here. And by the time we reach frame, I don't know, 115, let's say, I would have liked the camera from where it is By the way, I'm not really sure what that point over there is, but yeah, whatever. So oh, right. Okay. It seems like it's an indicator, I think, of the spring arm or something. Anyway, so I would like from this particular position where we're at now with the camera, I would like the camera at the frame 120. I would like it to move. Let me just see. Maybe, maybe we're going something like that, going below, something like that. Okay. So this is now keyed it. Okay. And if we have a look, this is what's happening with the camera. Now, we do get some issues here where you're seeing it's like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, why would it do that? Like at the moment it sort of passes through that point. Okay, because if we shift this to maybe somewhere around here, you'll notice it's sort of doing it because our ship is hitting something. You know what I mean? Can you see that? A little bit of self-advertisement here, but if you guys are interested in purchasing projects for Unreal Engine, for Space, or for Blender, like Nebula generators or VDB clouds, then head on over to my Linktree page. With the description is in the link, sorry, is in the description below. But you can access my Patreon page that has all my projects, the Unreal Engine Marketplace, Blender Market, ArtStation, or Gumroad, where all of my projects are available. So yeah, take a look if you'd like to sample some of my projects. They're actually, I think, quite reasonably priced. Now, the way we're going to fix this is by ensuring that the spring arm does not get in the way. And what do I mean by this? Well, we're going to select our blueprint and we're going to edit it. And now inside of it, we need to select the spring arm. And over here, you have something that says do collision test. So what you want to do is you want to disable that. And once you do it, now the spring arm will no longer interfere with our direction. So if we have a look again, this is our sequence over here. Let's just go backwards. You'll notice now, oh, sorry, I'm not in the camera. You've got to make sure that you're in the camera. So you'll notice now, if I go backwards, the ship stays where it's meant to be staying, okay? So it's fine now. So I just want the camera to sort of go down and maybe, I'm not really sure. I'm just trying to find a nice sort of position where to end. So if we have a look at this particular animation, you see where it's sort of going? That's how, if we're going back into the sequence, this is how our animation is going. Okay? So I'm going to put the sequence down here so we're able to actually see it as we're animating. This is why I always love two screens, man. It's that's the way to do it. One thing also is if we select the Cine camera, we can change the from digital film to a DSLR, so we have a better zoom. 35mm focal length. We're going to use a 30mm prime lens, something like that. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that we're noticing is that our camera is colliding with this asteroid here. So we do need to not have this issue, right? So as we're going up, we can actually get out of the camera and we can have a look. This is the camera track right here. So if we want to change that, then we can go to the camera transform, which is, well, this is the one right here. We're going to add another transform and you'll notice that this has created a point. So see that? That's the point over there. Now, if we select that, we can actually move it up like that. And you'll see now that the camera is going this way, right? And then we can also maybe go down here and then maybe we want, let me just go to an unlit mode. Maybe we want this to sort of go down like that. But it hasn't well, it's already created a point because I have this key pressed here. So it's already made that point. Okay. Now if we go back into the camera view, and we're going to go into lit mode. This is how our scene plays out. Okay. And this is happening very fast. So we're probably going to want to extend this to maybe like, I don't know, 384. And then if we want to actually extend this animation, we can actually drag it out like that. So then now the animation is taking far longer to, to reach that point, that conclusion. Okay, so we've done this and it's going in this direction and we have quite a bit of control. Over here, we can see that it's hitting again. See this asteroid over here. So what we can do now is yet again, we can animate the transform of the actual camera. So we could say location wise, maybe want it to go a bit more to the right, something like that. So as it's going down, you see now the camera is moving a bit more to the right. Actually, it's hitting something else now. So yeah, it's generally a good idea to get out of the camera and have a look at the actual path and see if it's going to hit something or not. So you can see over here, it's pretty much flying through an asteroid. So let me just go to this point. So that's the point over there that we're passing through, and that's fine. But then immediately after, right about here, it's hitting something else. So what we can do is we can shift that out as well. And again, we're now looking to see, is the camera going to hit something else? And by the looks of it, it's almost not. I mean, this is just a test. I'm just showing you things here for the sake of showing you. Obviously, refinement would need more work. Okay. So the ship, so by the time we've reached this point, I would have liked the ship to get closer to us. So at this point, we can have a look at bringing in the ship closer and maybe a bit lower, maybe something like that. And it's also rotated, maybe to a -20. And in terms of actual what it's looking, maybe it's 170. So now if we play again, you'll notice the ship has now changed a little bit. And now see, it's sort of like going down. It's following this curve. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit that. So it's like pivoting to look down, maybe a -10 and a 0 on rotation. So now as we go down, you'll notice we're doing sort of like a dive like that. And then because right about here is where we're starting to go up a bit, then I'm going to go over to the ship, press this button. So we're locking in those values. And then as we go up again, I am going to lift. So I'm gonna actually go for like 150. And we're going to lift to maybe like a not -30. We're going to go to a 30. So it's going up. And we're probably also going to be rolling negatively to a -20. So let's see how that looks like. So we're lifting up, and see right now, because we're just lifting up, but we probably lifted a bit too much. So what I mean by this is like probably 30 is a bit too much. So maybe a 5. So it's going down. And now it's going to go in a straight line. So as we go in a straight line, we could probably do a very nice roll. And maybe 160. Like that. And then you can see there it's shifted a little bit in sort of in terms of actual pacing. And one other problem that we've got is that the ship is a bit too far away. So I am going to actually, by the time it reaches us, I am going to make sure that it's definitely getting a bit closer. So maybe something like that. Now the spring arm could come into a bit of give us a bit of help here, because so far we've only edited this. But if we want to bring the spring arm, we can now bring in, just give it its values here, the most recent values. And then we can have a look at maybe we want it to change, something like that, or maybe something like that. Or let's do a -50, just for the argument's sake. And let's just have a look now. So you're seeing how we're using the spring arm and the rotation there. You see what I mean? And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to blocking out the scene. Okay. Now, right over here, we're getting you see, this is not a very good angle for us because the ship is just not angled correctly. So what we need to do is we need to rectify that. So maybe like a -20. But we did have another frame right here behind, beside it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over there and just see what did that look like. We're going to put that to maybe like a -10. So it's coming from a -10, it's going to a -10. There's still a bit of awkwardness going on. And we've got to see what's causing that awkwardness. And I believe it's going to be... Yeah, it's probably going to be this as well. Oh yeah, see right there we have a problem. It's how it's rotating, and that's going to be this value here, okay? So it's going from 170 to 150, and we should have just kept it at 170. Let's have a look. See, now we still still get a bit of an odd one here, so I'm going to delete that. And look at that. That's a lot better. Now, this shift here in rotation is way too sudden. There we go. And as we approach the end, we could probably make it so that the ship passes us. So what we can do is, if we're happy with just the ship the way it is, we can just take the spring arm and, move it like that and just get it at this point. So as the ship sort of moves, it's now getting closer and closer and closer, and it's going to be, just swoops out by the end, okay? Now, some of the things here, like for example, the spring arm, this point here, you might want to make this into a linear animation. And what this means is that it's going to have a consistent speed of changing its trajectory and moving across and so on. It's not going to slow down. It's just going to be moving at the same speed, okay? The camera slows down as well, so we might want the camera transform themselves to be linear as well. This might change the entire the way that this entire scene feels. You can, because I'll show you what I mean by this. If we go out of the camera now, because we've changed over to linear, see that? See how these points have now become just basically linear? This is going to be a bit of a problem. So I'm actually going to revert what I've done and leave that as it is. But I am going to make these, maybe this location, these here, might make them into linear. Let's just see how it plays out. It's very important that you play your scene out and understand whether or not it's working. And no, because I've done it to linear, it does go through that asteroid. But the animation speed, the animation bit at the end is working better. So can probably change this to cubic and do something like that. No, because we are in linear mode. Sorry, because we are in because we're in linear mode, it just simply does not work. We could speed it up here if we would like to, but I think that's fine. I think it works okay, to be fair. And that's all I've got for this tutorial. I hope you guys found it useful. I think it's a very nice and very straightforward workflow. There are definitely better approaches than this, but I think this is quite good for people that are at the start, for people that don't really know the engine that much, and they're just playing with the sequencer for the first time. This is a very good way for you to, for example, animate a car camera. So imagine like a car being chased, and you have an action camera that's following it around, because you got the element of the car itself on the road, but you also got the camera that's an element that's sort of following it, or you've got the camera being followed by, the camera being followed by the car, so to speak, but it's actually in reverse. So it gives you the impression like the camera is the one chasing the car, but in this particular method, it's the other way around, right? But this helps you to work out your navigation first, and then place the model to do what you want it to do next. And this works a lot better in a scene where you got three dimensions, while in a car on a road, for example, it's still 3D, but it's still 3 dimensions. But what I mean is like the car is locked to the ground while a ship is in space, so it can fly in any direction. Okay. Anyway, I hope you find that useful. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and give me some ideas of what you want to see next, and I'll, try and get them done. Thank you, and keep creating.